We begin news today with some really tragic news, and that is the death of Matthew Perry. Very sad, just shocking and sad. He died in his hot tub in his home in Pacific Palisades, which is a very beautiful, wealthy area of Los Angeles looking over the ocean. We don't know the cause of death just yet. Just recently, the LA County Coroner's Office folks changed the determination to deferred, which means just technically that they have to do some more tests, toxicology tests. We don't know. There are no signs of drugs at the scene or foul play at the scene, is the early word we are hearing. It is just awful because he spoke so candidly and openly and with an open heart about his struggles with addiction and alcoholism. And I think he worked so hard over the last several years to use his voice and use his power for good to help others who have been struggling. Again, we don't know what caused him to die. We don't know if it has anything to do with any kind of substances, but just to think back on how hard he's worked. He's only 54 years old, and how hard he worked to use his own struggle to help others. It's just is so heartbreaking. And Friends, a singular role on Friends, a lifetime defining role and a generation defining comedy, just that razor sharp wit, that deadpan delivery, just the way he could juggle self-deprecating humor with just brash arrogance and just have a lot of fun to watch always. It's just very sad.
Yeah, one of the great raised eyebrows in the business. And when going from this sitcom to then sort of becoming like the Aaron Sorkin guy, like that's a pretty big, that shows you somebody who's got real range and a really kind of eclectic talent.
And a way with words, clearly, if you can wrap your mouth around all the Sorkin-y dialogue there. Yeah. One big statement came from the other Friends castmates, and lots of outpourings of love from Salma Hayek to Gwyneth Paltrow to the NHL. He was raised partly in Montreal. His mom was Pierre Trudeau's press secretary. So he grew up with Justin Trudeau. They were childhood friends. So he posted about him. The NHL posted, rest in peace to friend of hockey, Matthew Perry. So really, really tragic. So that just happened in the last several days. On Saturday night, we learned about that. And then we've been gone for a little bit. And so there have been several folks who sadly have died while we were gone, including Richard Roundtree.
Yes.
At age 81. Yeah, pancreatic cancer. Awful. But of course, a legendary screen presence and just a voice, in all the Shaft movies and
every iteration, like they kept bringing back Shaft and they couldn't do it without Richard Roundtree in there. So you got to admire that kind of. He was in the Sam Jackson reboot, and then he was in the more recent reboot, all of which were titled Shaft, by the way.
Yeah,
way to make it confusing for future archivists. But yeah, Richard Roundtree, and I remember he had a great. Remember the show Rock?
ROC. Yes.
Yeah. He had a great guest shot. I remember this was back when I would still try and videotape all of the episodes, all of the sitcom episodes with the gay episode. He was like the gay cousin who got married. And this was in the 90s when that was not a real commonplace thing, either for actors to take those roles or for gays to get married. So it was a big deal. And I remember thinking oh, well done, Shaft. That's a bold move. And this year he had that great romance with Jane Fonda in the film that they did together. So
80 for Brady?
No, the other one. The one that she and Lily Tomlin did with Malcolm McDowell.
Right. We reviewed it.
Yes, and I can't remember what it was called.
And she wants to go back and kill
Malcolm McDowell.
Yes.
Yes.
That was lovely. And you guys are all shouting at us right now, I'm sure, with the name of the movie. We reviewed it. I'm going to look it up while we're talking. So so that is very sad. We should talk about box office as well. Five Nights at Freddy's. Alonso, you are a trooper for going to see Five Nights at Freddy's at a press screening in Atlanta. We have a quick little out of the theater response from you on that. It was huge, you guys. It made $80 million in the U.S. alone, $132 million globally. Did you guys see Five Nights at Freddy's?
Moving On is the movie.
Moving
with
On.
Richard
Yes,
Roundtree.
I just literally just at the same time found Moving On IMDb. Moving On.
Yeah, so the big thing about Five Nights at Freddy's having a sizable Halloween weekend box office take was that it was day and date on Peacock.
Mhm.
And I think that, this is not the first time this has happened. I think at least one of the David Gordon Green Halloweens was day and date on Peacock and had a respectable showing in theaters while also being available to streaming viewers. So I think moving forward, this might be a way for streamers to understand that it's not an either or situation, that there's an audience that wants to see these movies at home, but there's also an audience that will still come out and buy a ticket and want that big screen theater experience, and the two aren't mutually exclusive. So
But it wasn't good, right? Like, it got
it was
terrible
not.
reviews.
It was not. But it is an IP that I think the audience was very excited about. I mentioned in my review, everybody else in the theater with me clearly knew the game really well. Like, there were cosplayers there, and there was stuff in the movie that was like it complete. I don't want to spoil it for the ones who do know, but for those of us who don't know, it's like, I don't know what's happening here, but people are applauding, so I guess it's a thing. So, they were very shrewd about targeting that audience and giving them what they wanted to see in a movie version of this video game. So clearly there were enough people that were, fans of the game and really wanted to see what the movie would look like, that even though the reviews were terrible, they headed into theaters in big numbers and, made this movie some money on top of, the numbers we'll probably never get from Peacock, because that's still probably a bone of contention in their negotiation with the Screen Actors Guild. But, maybe a writer can tell us.
I think, too, it's a matter of timing. Like, okay, it was Halloween and people wanted to see something scary. And like this weekend, for example, they're re-releasing Oppenheimer in IMAX for one more week, like bringing it back in IMAX, because there's not really a whole lot that's huge that's opening this week. There's a lot that's opening, but nothing is really gigantic until, we're starting to get into the big potential award season stuff coming up in the next several weeks. So Oppenheimer is going to be back in theaters. Can you hear that clanging sound, you guys? That's my dog. That's Baxter licking the bowl really hard. Like, I think he's hoping that, like, the harder he licks, like, food will come out of it. So clearly I need to
well,
I need to feed him.
They clearly, yes, bad mom. They brought Barbie back for a week in IMAX, and so I'm not surprised if there's a bit of a lull between things. Like, I'm sure, Killers of the Flower Moon got a week or two in the IMAX house. They're like, just bring Oppenheimer back. Why not?
Yeah, for sure. There is going to be a bunch of movie dates moving around and announcements going on that we've missed or they're new. Disney has pulled Magazine Dreams from its schedule. This is the Jonathan Majors movie. Has had all kinds of awards buzz over the last several months.
At Sundance. They were really going to like.
Did you see it?
No, I didn't. I didn't see much at Sundance this year, but that was not one of them. But yeah, at the time it was like, oh, this is clearly like they're going to do a big Oscar push for Jonathan Majors, and it was like it was a big deal. They did, it was not cheap. Like, they spent a lot of money on this, but the things that are unfolding now with Jonathan Majors off screen, they clearly decided now is not the time, if ever, to try and make that happen. So yeah, they have yanked that one.
Also, the release date was particularly tricky because it was supposed to have come out on December 8th, which is right after the start of his assault trial.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he was going to be in the headlines for not a good reason. And like, oops, here's his movie.
Not only so there's that. Not only can he not promote the movie, but like he's going to be there. All the wrong things are going to be on people's mouths,
Yeah. And then, okay, so Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is now not going to be called Dead Reckoning Part 2. That's that sequel. No, I'm saying that the sequel to it is not going to be called Dead Reckoning Part 2. Like, if you recall, we were complaining that's a terrible title. Apparently they all think so too. So now Dead Reckoning Part 1 is just going to be dangling out there in the breeze for all of eternity. Whatever the sequel is, it will not be called Dead Reckoning Part 2. They've also moved it to May of 2025. So you got to wait a couple more summers for Tom Cruise to save cinema again. We also have A Quiet Place Day 1 has moved from March to June of 2024.
Into the old slot for Mission Impossible.
Right. And then the Rachel Zegler Snow White has been moved. So
to 2025, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this has to all be like SAG related, yes?
Yes. As in the case of both Mission Impossible and Snow White, it's because, there's the shooting delays from SAG. And, this is just going to happen more and more the longer the producers allow this strike to continue, that they don't come to the table with a better deal, because the pipeline has been empty for quite a while now, and you've seen like Dune 2 getting moved and other things sort of getting reshuffled because they wanted to be, they wanted actors to be able to promote it and that kind of thing, but there's been no, apart from like some indies and signatory stuff, like the smaller like A24 things, but like big studio movies that would have required a SAG and Writers Guild sort of write off on it, not happening. So I think the next couple of years probably we're gonna see these reverberations of movies that either will wind up not happening or will wind up coming out a lot later than we thought. I'm sure the MCU, which was probably already backed up some from COVID and stuff, there's going to be a gap there where nothing got made,
You know what you can enjoy in December or even sooner if you'd like? That is the new holiday blend from our friends at Coffee Bros. Delicious holiday blend in a very, very pretty package. Alonso loves all things Christmas all year round. So we can talk about this at any point in time. But it's coming out now, and you can take 15% off of your Coffee Brothers order with our code Breakfast15. It's down there below. And it sounds like a great gift. I think if anyone is looking for gifts now to stockpile, buy a couple for yourself, buy some for others. You have free shipping with orders of at least $50. So start planning now. I know today is Halloween, but it's time to start planning for Christmas.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, it is. No, and these make a great little stocking stuffer. If you maybe need a hostess gift for an event that you're attending, a nice bag of holiday festive coffee, why not? I think this time of year, like if you're a pumpkin spice person, great, good for you. I personally think that the Christmas stuff is where things taste the best. The hand soaps smell better. Like I love all of the piney, cinnamony, clovey, pepperminty things that are going on right now.
Well, this flavor is inspired by brothers Nick and Dan on their like holiday trips as children to like the grandparents' house in Germany, and like how the scent of like warm spiced wine. So all of those flavors are in there in the coffee. So go get you some of that. Go check them out. We also have a sequel to It Follows, which I'm feeling torn about. It's called They Follow, and I love David Robert Mitchell. I'm a huge fan of his work, and I love the myth of the American Sleepover. Like he's just a filmmaker. I've always really enjoyed his very particular style. And I love It Follows. And this reunites him with Maika Monroe. But it's so great. Like that film was so great. I guess, I don't know. Do I want more of it? Can more be good? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those movies where it feels pretty self-contained.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where else there's to go. If they've come up with something, sure, why not? Yeah. Somebody on Blue Sky said that they should have called it It Follows, It Follows, which I think would have been a better title. But, I never get what I want.
Also, we should talk really fast about the fact that some theaters are putting an intermission in the middle of Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yes.
And are being told not to, and they're just putting it where they think is a fine place. The film runs 3 hours and 26 minutes long, and that's a long time to sit without going to the bathroom. And so some theaters are deciding, here's where you should go, and I think that's terrible, and it's not Marty's artistic vision.
I see both sides of this. On the one hand, yes, like Martin Scorsese and his editor Thelma Schumacher did not build in an intermission. They are intending for this to go as one, fluid work of art, without interruption. And so I believe in respecting that. On the other hand, I think that, there has never in history been a Broadway play that ran 3.5 hours without an intermission. Dave White was saying that like if an opera were that long, there would be 2 intermissions. And I've seen from the sort of disabled community a direct address of like, there is something kind of ableist about expecting people to sit for 3.5 hours without taking a bathroom break or without stretching their legs or whatever it is they might need to do in the course of that time, where being seated for that duration of time might be more than their body can handle. I am a believer in intermissions. I think they're great. I remember Reds had one when it originally came out, and then I went to like a 25th anniversary screening at the ArcLight, RIP, and they still did the intermission. And they're good for theaters because you're more likely to buy a big soda at the beginning if you know you're going to get a break in the middle. And that break allows you another chance to go to the snack bar and get even more stuff. So I think it was a mistake, maybe not to put the intermission there, but now that it's not there, I don't know that I endorse theaters putting one in there. So you're all wrong.
Right. It's totally presumptuous, right? Theater owners love it because they can like double their sales. But I think it's totally arrogant and presumptuous to assume that you know better than Martin Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker. It's just messed up. Anyway, if you are seeing Killers of the Flower Moon, if you have seen it, was there an intermission? Do you wish there had been an intermission? Let us know.
I bet you this, though, like, in the same way that once The Irishman hit Netflix and people were like, hey, here's how to watch it as a 6-part miniseries, people are going to do that time code thing for Flower Moon. They're going to do it for the 4-hour Ridley Scott Napoleon when that hits Apple TV. So, the internet they're in charge.